My name's Aaron. I'm 29, a software developer in Denver, and I guess you could say I've always been the invisible one in the family. Not the rebel, not the golden child, just the background character, family gatherings. I was the guy setting up chairs. Birthdays, I got gift cards with no name. My younger sister Emma, though she was the star daddy's princess. Mom's pride and the one my grandparents called our little angel, even when she crashed a car at 17, and somehow I got blamed for not raising her better. Yeah, that kind of family. But there was one person who saw me, really saw me. My grandfather, Mom's dad. His name was Walter, but everyone called him Gramps. Retired Navy man, old school to the bone, walked with a cane carved out of some exotic. When he got in Vietnam, he was the only one who remembered my birthday without Facebook, the only one who showed up to my college graduation. Even though everyone else claimed the weather was bad, we had a tradition every Sunday morning we'd meet at this old diner with cracked booths and watery coffee, and he'd ask me the same thing: you building something with those clever hands of yours? And when I said yes, he'd smile, lean in like it was a secret, and say, "Good, don't let them turn you into the mule." I didn't understand what he meant until much later. Gramps passed last September, quietly in his sleep in that creaky old house where he'd lived for 50 years. I got the call from his neighbor before my own family even told me when I arrived. My mom was already there, rummaging through drawers, muttering under her breath. My sister sat on the couch with a dramatic tissue in hand, like she was auditioning for a soap opera. I asked if I could have a moment alone with him. Mom rolled her eyes. "We don't have time for sentiment, Aaron. There's paperwork." I still remember walking into that bedroom. His cane was propped neatly by the nightstand, his glasses folded beside it. The room smelled like cedar and old paper. I sat down on the edge of the bed and let out one long breath. I didn't cry, not yet. Instead, I noticed a small envelope under his lamp, my name on the front, in his crooked handwriting. I opened it, and inside was a short note: "If you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't trust anyone with my memory but you. The will is in the safe. Combination is your birthday backwards. Be smart, be careful. Love, Gramps." My heart was racing. I walked to the small safe behind his bookshelf, same one he'd shown me years ago when he used to hide moonshine in it during family dinners. I turned the dial. September 17th, 93 backward. It clicked. Inside was a thick folder sealed with red string. Another note sat on top: "The estate is yours, Aaron, all of it. The house, the land, savings. $3 million in assets. You earned it. You saw me, and I saw you. Don't let them erase that." I stared at it for what felt like hours, the weight of those words. The quiet trust of a man who was more father to me than anyone else. It hit like a freight train, but even then, I knew my mom wouldn't take this well. Neither would Emma. To them, the inheritance wasn't about love, it was about status, possession. And now that status had been given to me, the invisible one. Oh, they would burn down the world to flip the script at the official reading of the will a week later. The air was tense. We sat in the lawyer's office, mahogany walls, leather chairs. The kind of place that smells like old cigars, and power. My mom wore all black, like she was performing grief. Emma wore pearls. I wore my usual jeans and a button-down. The lawyer, Mr. Caldwell, cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and began reading. At first it was all formalities. Then came the line: "I, Walter James P., being of sound mind and body, hereby leave the entirety of my estate, property, assets, and holdings to my grandson, Aaron Michael P., in gratitude for his loyalty, integrity, and care." The room went still. My mom's face turned to stone. Emma's mouth fell open. Mr. Caldwell kept reading, unfazed, but I couldn't hear anything beyond that one sentence echoing in my head. Then Mom slammed her hand on the table. "That's not right," she snapped. That he meant Emma. He always said it was for her. This must be a mistake, Mr. Caldwell blinked. "I assure you, this is the signed, witnessed, and notarized will. Your father was very clear." My mom turned to me with a Slavonymous smile. "Aaron, sweetheart, you're not actually going to take this from your sister, are you? You don't need This Emma has plans. She has dreams. Don't be selfish. Emma chimed in, "It's not fair, Aaron." Gosh, you know he was probably confused at the end. You should do the right thing. I didn't say a word, just stood up, folded the wheel, and walked out that night. I stayed at Gramps' house, my house. Now I guess I was still reeling, not just from the inheritance, but from how fast the mask came off. My family's faces, no mourning, no kindness. Just entitlement and fairy. Around midnight, I heard the back door creak open. I froze. Footsteps, whispers. I peeked from the hallway. My mother and sister were inside, rummaging through drawers. Mom was holding something, a lighter. "What are you doing?" I asked, stepping into the room. They jumped. "You shouldn't be here," Mom hissed. "I live here now," I replied, voice steady. That's when Emma shoved me backward into the couch. Mom grabbed the folder I'd tucked into the drawer. "This is what matters," she sneered. "And you don't deserve it." I tried to stand, but Emma held my arms down. Mama penned the folder and yanked out the will. "This never happened," she whispered. An SHHK. Tore it straight down the middle again and again, into ribbons. Then they left no apologies. No shame. I just sat there, but I wasn't angry. I smiled, because what they destroyed wasn't the original. It wasn't even legal. And what they didn't know was that Gramps had written 2 versions and the real one, well, let's just say it wasn't even in the house anymore. The morning after, they tore up the fake will. I brewed a cup of coffee, stepped out onto the back porch, and just stared at the garden Gramps had once tended. Rows of overgrown tomatoes, wild mint choking the edges, and a busted lawn gnome with half its hat missing. The sun was barely up, but I was wide awake, wired not from caffeine, but from the sheer clarity of everything. For the first time I saw them, my family, for exactly what were not people who'd lost a father or a grandfather, just scavengers who'd been circling the estate like buzzards waiting for the meat to go cold, and they thought they'd won. Here's what they didn't know. Gramps had called me over 2 weeks before he passed, said he needed my help setting up some tech stuff. I brought my laptop, thinking he wanted to learn how to stream war documentaries instead. He walked me through a very specific set of tasks, scanning and uploading documents to his lawyer's cloud drive, recording a video message, and even reading through a backup. We'll store digitally the physical copy. The one they tore up was a decoy, something to test their integrity. They failed spectacularly. Later that day, I met with Mr. Caldwell again. I handed him a flash drive, then opened my encrypted cloud folder on his office computer. His eyebrows rose when he saw the backup. Gramps had recorded a time-stamped Clear Day video of him sitting in the very living room where Mom and Emma had ambushed me. "Hello, whoever's watching this." Gramps began, voice growly, but strong. "If you're seeing this, it means something went sideways. Probably involving you, Deborah." He chuckled to himself, then looked right into the camera. "This will is real. The one you tore up, it's bait. Aaron's the only one I trust. He's the only one who ever showed up, not for handouts, not for favors, just to sit and talk. He's earned this. You want to contest it? Be my guest. But know this, I knew you'd try." Mr. Caldwell leaned back, lips pursed in something between amusement and awe. "He really did plan for everything, didn't he?" I nodded. "He always played chess while the rest of them were fighting over checkers." The next week, I started quietly transferring assets. The house title was already in my name, the accounts, investments, land, it all followed. I didn't rub it in their facessi, didn't even block their numbers. I just stopped replying. Cold silence, that's all. I gave them at first. They were quiet, but by week 2, the texts started rolling in. Mom texted Aaron, "We need to talk. Things got out of hand." Emma texted, "Can we at least split the house? I mean, I was supposed to live there after college." Mom texted again, "Grandpa was sick. He didn't know what he was doing. I'm sure you realize that." And then the cherry on top, Emma texted, "You wouldn't even have a family if it weren't for me. Stop being selfish. We're blood." That word clanged around in my head like a bad bell, as if DNA entitles people to loyalty, respect, and access, as if sharing a gene pool gives Them the right to rip apart your piece and still expect a piece of the pie, but things escalated fast. From there, one afternoon, I came back from a short grocery run to Finn's side gate broken. The lock was snapped clean in half. Like someone had hit it with a hammer, I walked inside and froze in the hallway, cabinets open, drawers pulled out and in. The middle of the floor shredded paper. They'd come back, they thought. I still had another wall hidden somewhere, or bank statements, or God knows what they even rifled through. Gramps' old footlocker, and left my childhood photos scattered across. The floor there was a smear of lipstick on the light switch. Emma's, no doubt a familiar floral scent, lingered in there, but they hadn't counted on two things. First, I'd already moved everything valuable, paperwork, jewelry, anything of worth into a safe deposit box at the bank under a trust account Gramps had set up with my name as sole beneficiary. Second, I had cameras installed, high-res night vision audio. I watched the footage that night, my mother pacing in the kitchen like she owned it, Emma opening every drawer with manic energy, muttering things like, "Where is it? Where is it? He has to have another one somewhere." And then my mother, Tornado, the camera looked directly into it and smiled. "Brought you into this world, Aaron," she whispered, "and I'll take everything back. Just watch me." That was the moment. I felt something inside me harden, not just anger, resolve, a quiet click of finality, like a steel door slamming shut. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as an obstacle to their wealth, and now they'd escalated things from manipulation to outright breaking and entering. I filed the footage and sent copies to my lawyer. He reviewed the footage, took statements, and drafted a notice. The police would be next, but before I made any official moves, I decided on one last step, a gesture. I mailed each of them a copy of Gramps' video. Well, not the whole estate file, just the part where he looked into the camera and said, "You betray Aaron. Know this, he's smarter than you think, and you're not nearly as untouchable as you pretend." Inside each envelope, I also included a note of my own. "This is your legacy. You chose it. I didn't." 3 days passed. Then came the knock at my door. Not police, not lawyers. Them, Mom, Emma, and off all people, Uncle Craig, another leech I hadn't seen in a decade, suddenly very interested in mediating things. I didn't open the door, just watched them through the glass. They rang, the bell knocked. Again, Mom shouted, "Aaron, we just want to talk." Emma added, "You're tearing this family apart." I turned off the porch light, walked into the kitchen, and turned up the stereo. Let them stand in the cold. But what I did next, that's when things really started to unravel. I let them knock for 5 more minutes before they finally gave up. Watching them storm off my porch was satisfying, not joyful, not triumphant, just clarifying. It was the first time I truly saw them outside the roles I'd assigned them growing up. My mom wasn't a misguided parent. Emma wasn't a spoiled brat. Uncle Craig wasn't just some out-of-touch relative. They were all adults who had made a series of calculated, self-serving decisions, and now that those decisions had real consequences, they wanted to talk. No apology, no remorse, just control dressed up as concern. That night, I reviewed the footage again and backed it up in 3 locations. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. Gramps had always told me, "Be polite, be kind, but never be unarmed," and right now, information was my weapon-proof evidence, the only kind of thing they couldn't twist or fake. The next morning, I walked into Caldwell's office with a folder labeled "Criminal Trespassing, 3 Parties." He skimmed through it, quietly pausing at a still shot of my mom smiling directly into the camera. "Mid-Brecken, well," he said, tapping the folder with one finger. "We can press charges today if you want." I hesitated. It wasn't that. I felt conflicted. I didn't know them mercy. But part of me wondered, what if this escalates things? What if they don't just slink away? What if they double down? I looked at Mr. Caldwell and said, "Let's hold off on the police just for now, but I want a cease and desist letter sent to each of them. Full legal language, make it sharp." He nodded. "And the restraining order prep, have it ready." I said, "They come near me or the house again, I file it immediately." He raised an eyebrow. Your grandfather would be proud. That hit me harder than I expected. By Friday, the letters were sent certified mail, signed receipt, the kind of envelope that makes your stomach twist. Just looking at it, and just like clockwork, the text rolled in again. Emma texted, "Really, Aaron, legal threats, now we're family. You're making this ugly." Mom texted, "Do you know what you're doing? Do you have any idea how this will look to people?" That one made me laugh because for the first time in my life, I didn't care what things looked like. I wasn't the background character anymore. I wasn't going to be the quiet, reasonable one who smoothed things over while everyone else set fires. I was done playing peacemaker in a war. I never started, but they weren't done that weekend. I got a call from my boss, Elliot. Chill guy, runs a small software firm. We've worked together for 4 years. "Hey Aaron," he said casually. "Quick question, did something weird happen in your family? I got a strange email this morning." My stomach dropped. "What kind of email?" He paused. "Anonymous tip said you forged a will to steal money from your dying grandfather. Even attached a photo of you walking out of a lawyer's office, claimed you had a history of mental illness." I went cold there, trying to tank my job. I said quietly, "Yeah." He replied, "But don't worry, I didn't believe a word of it. The writing was unhinged, and it came from an address like Justice for Emma." I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. "Thanks, Elliot. Take care of yourself, man, and if you need time off to handle this circus, just say the word after." I hung up. I sat at the kitchen table in silence for a long time. They weren't just angry. They were desperate, and desperation makes people reckless. They were trying to drag my name through the mud, to smear me into backing down. They weren't just trying to steal the inheritance. They wanted to destroy my credibility so no one would believe me when I fought back. So I pivoted. I spent the next 2 days gathering more than just legal documents. I compiled every letter Gramps had written me over the years, emails, texts, the video. I reached out to his old friends, guys from the VFW, his mechanic, even his barber, anyone who had heard Gramps talk about me in a positive light. I asked for statements. Some were handwritten, some were voice memos. One guy mailed me an actual cassette tape then. I sat down and wrote a long, detailed post. No accusations, no profanity, just facts, dates, screenshots, video stills. I titled it, "My family tried to steal my grandfather's inheritance. When that failed, they tried to ruin my life." I posted it on a forum we all followed, an old online community Gramps had been active in, full of his friends and fellow vets. I didn't use real names, but I didn't need to. The people who knew us, they knew the fallout was instant. Emma's carefully curated sweet girl image shattered. Her social media comments were flooded with people quoting her own words. From the break-in footage, my mom's bridge club, yes, that's real, kicked her out within 48 hours. Apparently financially abusing your son doesn't pair well with cucumber sandwiches. But it wasn't enough, because that Sunday, I got another visitor. Uncle Craig, standing on my porch with a briefcase and the smug smile I've ever seen. "Let's talk man-to-man," he said. I folded my arms. "We're not men, we're not even related legally," he laughed. "Come on, Aaron, you don't want this to get ugly, do you?" I leaned against the doorframe. "Craig, it's already ugly. You just haven't bled yet." He looked startled, but I wasn't bluffing, because what I did next, well, that was the move that made all their threats implode at once. And it started with one phone call. Didn't make the call right away. I waited until Uncle Craig was halfway down the driveway, muttering to himself and checking his phone. Like someone who almost had a plan but not quite. He thought this was a negotiation, a business dispute, something you fix with favors and leverage and passive threats. He was about to learn the difference between bluffing and being outmatched. I stepped back into the house, locked the door, and picked up my phone. I called Mr. Caldwell first. "It's time," I told him. "File the police report, press charges, include the footage, the break-in, everything. Let them explain it to a judge." Now his voice was calm and steady, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Understood. I'll file it by morning. I'll also begin the process." For a restraining order, and I'll flag thy inheritance for court protection, I hung up and made one more call. This one wasn't to a lawyer. It was to Mrs. Hadley, my grandfather's former neighbor, sweet woman, used to bake him ginger cookies every Christmas. She was also the only person who witnessed my mom sneaking into the house the night they tore up the fake well. Hi, Mrs. Hadley, I hope I'm not disturbing you, but do you remember that night my mother and sister came over? You mentioned seeing something strange. Oh, honey, she said immediately. I already wrote everything down. I knew they were up to something. I saw them creeping through the gate at midnight like burglars. I even called it into the non-emergency line, but no one came. My heart surged. Would you be willing to submit that statement? I'm filing charges. Oh, absolutely. Walter was a dear friend. What they did was vile. Within 48 hours, things began to snowball. Police officers arrived at my mother's house with a warrant. They seized her phone and Emma's to the footage from my cameras. Mrs. Hadley's statement and a match on the lipstick print, too. Emma's favorite brand of lip gloss were all more than enough to justify the charges. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, and attempted fraud. When they were arrested, it hit the local news, not front page, but enough the headline read, "Mother-daughter duo accused of breaking into family home after dispute over inheritance." I saw the mugshots online that night. Emma looked shell-shocked. My mother looked like she'd just bitten into something sour. I stared at their faces for a long time, and for a moment just a flicker of one. I almost felt sorry for them, but then I remembered the hands holding me down while they shredded the will. The smugness, the entitlement, the way Mom looked me in the eye and said, "You don't deserve this." That sympathy vanished like smoke. The court process took time. They pleaded not guilty, of course, claimed they were retrieving family belongings, and that I overreacted, but the digital records didn't lie. The judge wasn't amused. My lawyer played the video of my mom smiling into the camera while saying, "I'll take everything back, just watch me." Silence followed in the courtroom. Even their public defender looked embarrassed. The judge granted me a permanent restraining order. They were barred from coming within 200 feet of me, the house, or any of the estate properties Emma was ordered into. Mandatory counseling after an emotional outburst during hearing where she screamed that he stole my future. The judge just stared and said, "Your future was never yours to steal." But the true final twist came when Gramps' secondary trust came to light. It turned out he'd left something else, a contingency fund of $250,000, and in the video, Willie clearly stated, "This is for Aaron to do with as he sees fit. If the family honors his space, he may choose to share it. If they betray him, he keeps every cent." My hands shook when Caldwell told me, "What do you want to do with it?" He asked. I didn't even need to think. Keep it. They earned their exile. Emma ended up dropping out of grad school with legal fees piling up and a reputation now trailing her like toilet paper on a shoe. She couldn't afford tuition or the Instagram influencer lifestyle she'd been carefully cultivating. Her boyfriend dumped her. When the inheritance scam hit the news, he posted a story the next day with the caption, "Dodged a bullet. My mother filed for bankruptcy 6 months later. Uncle Craig ghosted them entirely. Turns out his briefcase empty, his help hollow." When she reached out to me through a third party, asking for just enough to get back on her feet, I responded with a quote from Gramps, "Be polite, be kind, but never be unarmed." Then I blocked the number. The house stayed mine. I remodeled Gramps' old study into a library, floor to ceiling bookshelves, plush leather chairs, and his cane mounted above the fireplace. Every Sunday morning, I still go to that diner we loved. I sit in the same booth. I order 2 cups of coffee, one for me, one for him. I keep the second untouched, just there, just a reminder. It's been a year now. I'm 30, and I'm no longer invisible. When people talk about legacy, they usually mean money, land, assets. But what my grandfather left me was more than any of that. He left me clarity. He left me the courage to cut ties that were slowly strangling me, and he left me the tools to defend myself. When the people who claimed to love me turned into wolves, So if you're reading this and you're the quiet one, the overlooked one, the mula pulling, the wait for everyone, else let me tell you something, you are not obligated to stay loyal to people who see you as a wallet, a tool, or a stepping stone. You're allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to walk away, and sometimes the best revenge is living the life they said you didn't deserve. I'm living it now, and I'm not looking back. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.